Hi there, this is Grace Kwock. I'm with Pencilish Animation and I'm working on Bjorn and color. So this is the scene I'm coloring. We're just gonna play that back slower so that you guys can see all that needs to be colored. So the first thing I need to do is remove the animation numbers or charts that the animators left in so they knew exactly where they needed to animate and how to in between, which I know there's going to be some behind the pencils but in between, so go check them out. So here I'm just selecting the numbers and just deleting them. Thankfully, since all of the drawing is done in a vector, it's very easy to go through and just select and delete them. Yeah, it's super exciting to be working on Bjorn, especially doing ink and paint. I personally love ink and paint and the process of doing it, and I can't wait to share more of it with you. Alright, so the next thing I need to do is I'm selecting a specific brush because all of the lines are what we call self-color lines, or we color the lines for Bjorn. So I'm going through and I'm just making sure that the lines are colored correctly. This one is the main ink. And that's not the main one, it's the one for the main of Bjorn because he's a unicorn. Now I have the body ink and I'm just going through and marking out exactly what needs to happen. It's a fairly tedious process, but it's not too bad. It's fairly easy in Harmony as they have a brush that's made specifically to do this. As you go through, you just have to make sure that you hit all the lines that would be touching. So for the body, it's going to have a body ink, and anything that's with the body ink has to have that color. So his torso, his legs, his arms, his head, his ears. Yeah, just quickly going through that and just marking it off. Making sure I have everything. Okay, looks pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the horn. Although where that gray box is what is seen. In case for some reason we have to reframe it in compositing, I like to go ahead and color everything, even if it's not technically on screen, like the horn at this point. Okay, now that those lines are colored, in ink and paint, always like to do my self-color lines first. It just, for me, helps me to block them out per cell or per frame. Okay, here we have some paint cutting over, so we just use the brush and paint over it. Okay, looks good. That one looks good as well. But coloring the ink first just helps me keep everything organized. So going through, it's like, okay, making sure I have the pupils. Doesn't really look that different, but it's important to make sure. Under the eyes are attached to the muzzle, so I'm just gonna go ahead, block that off, and then color it. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna do the tooth. Okay. Now I'm gonna color the hooves. Okay, we're running into a problem. It's looking exactly the same as when what's already there, but all of the hoof ink needs to be this specific black. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go to my Bjorn false colors, move them up in the palette list, and now you can see all the lines are like vivid colors and they look weird. But this is just so we can see exactly what's going on in the ink and paint. Afterwards, we'll just move that palette back underneath the main palette, and it'll go right back to those subtle colors you saw me using. But for trickier colors, I just like to go ahead and use the false palette so I can see, oh, the hooves are clearly colored in the hoof ink and not just missed completely, which would be a problem overall going through. So here I'm making sure, okay, the belly ink, it matches on both. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring my false palette back down, so I'm just using my actual palette. All right, it's looking pretty good. Oh, there's a line that's black. Let me just get it. There we go. Okay, missed some hooves. Just going through and painting that real fast. Okay, it looks like all the hooves are done. Now he's holding a prop. He's holding that little, like, hobo satchel. Okay, now I'm done with that. I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to my other palette and go ahead and ink the bag's lines. Okay, perfect. So that's looking really good. Okay, and now as you can see, the lines are all here, but when I toggle the invisible strokes on and off, I can see what in color I'm painting. So these strokes don't show up, all these blue lines, but they help me by closing in the lines. And if they're not closed in, I just go ahead and fix it like that. And then I just use the paint bucket tool. Yep. Okay, there we go. Then I'm gonna go ahead and color the pole. And I'm on the color layer now instead of the line art layer. And that's why the color is appearing underneath the line art to the edge of those invisible strokes, which is really helpful because otherwise I'd have to go through by hand and then paint this under the lines, which is what the original ink and paint women used to do, is they would get an inked cell and then they would flip it over like a physical cell of like clear plastic, and then they would paint on the other side of the lines. So it's almost working backwards. Okay, we have a little bit of a gap here. I'm going to turn back to my brush. Oh, nope. I have a special brush on, so I'm going to use my pencil tool. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in. Okay, looks good. All right. And we're still on our false palette because it's easier to see some of those colors on it. So obviously his body is still the same color because it's pretty easy to see. Oh, I'll just fix that when I do the body. Okay. I'm gonna do the eyebrows. There's a little bit missing. But yeah. Ink and paint hasn't changed too much. I would say it's been streamlined now that we're on digital. But the concept of still painting everything that's in animation, it's an important step because without ink and paint, you wouldn't see the beautiful animations you're used to. You would just see animation that looks black and white, which can be, but it wouldn't even be toned. It would just be black lines and white paper, which is not what you want to see. So I'm doing my muzzle paint now. Okay, that's kind of hard to see. It is the same color, so I'm going to go into my false palette and just make it a little yellow. Again, I'm only altering the false palette, and when I bring it back below the master palette, it changes. That's a Toon Boom trick, because we are doing all of our ink and paint within Toon Boom, which really helps. Some other programs may not have that, and you would have to color it exactly, which can be tricky when you're dealing with this many colors. Okay, that's nice in there now. Sometimes the invisible lines won't do corners too well, so we'll have to go through and fix that. Okay, now for the mane. His mane is a rainbow gradient. So right now I'm just going to fill in all of the gradients, and it's going to look weird. He's going to have weird, trippy, psychedelic, hippie hair, which is not what we want. We want fun rainbow gradient. So I'm going to go ahead and select each of the hair color segments. Then I am going to, now that I have all of them selected, go over and hit edit gradient, and then move my gradient origin point, where the gradient is coming from, and just tweak it to where the purple is at the base of the hair where it would hit the neck, and pink is at the top. I really want to make sure the color is filling that nicely. Yeah, I think it's a little too much yellow up top. There we go. Okay. That looks about good. Oh, autosave. Save your work, guys. If you're working on something while watching this, save it. You're welcome. Anyways, I have been the victim of lost work to not saving a lot. Okay, so now that everything's colored, I'm gonna move the floss palette down, and there it is. There's one frame colored for Bjorn. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Give me a second, and I will pull up what the finished work looks like for this whole sequence. Okay, here is the finished sequence with the sled all painted and Bjorn completely painted. Let's watch it. Whee! There he goes. Yeah. So as you can see here, it's a process because you have to paint every single frame, but it really does pay off in the end to just bring that extra step to bring the animation to life.
If you like what you just saw, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Pencilish Studios.